Hey, how you doing? I'm David from the Alamo. This month is October, which means it's Glocktober, and one of the topics I really like speaking about is Glocks, because I love Glocks. So I'm going to try to keep this video short. It's going to be hard, but what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the history of the Glock and the 5 generations, all right? And the gun that I'm going to be talking about is the flagship Glock 17, which was the first model that Gaston Glock invented. So Gaston Glock, who had previously zero experience developing pistols, developed the Glock 17 around 1980, between 1980 and 1982, when the Austrian army was trying to get a new sidearm. They'd been using the old P38s and they wanted something a little more modern, a little higher capacity, a little easier to use, and Gaston Glock threw his hat into the ring, and sure enough, his model was accepted for the Austrian army. And eventually, as you probably know, Glocks made their way to the United States, and in the mid-1980s, Gaston Glock really pushed the Glock pistol to the United States, specifically for law enforcement, but eventually, obviously, it made its way into the civilian market. A factory was built in Smyrna, Georgia, and nowadays, I would say more than 65% of law enforcement departments carry Glocks to some degree. So let's just go through the generations here and see what some of the differences and changes are as the Glock pistol developed from generation 1 all the way to generation 5. I probably won't get every little thing for you serious Glock heads out there, but I'll sort of get the important points here. Okay, so here we go. This is a Glock Gen 1 that came out of the Smyrna factory in October of 1986, so it's a pretty early model. As you can see, it's fairly basic. There's no rail on here. You'll notice there's one pin, the trigger pin here. If we look at the grip of the gun, we've sort of got a pebble texture going all the way around. And if you were to feel this polymer, it has kind of a spongy, soft feeling. Gaston Glock already had quite a experience with polymer as he developed things like knives and bayonet lugs, shovels, curtain rods, that kind of thing. And just so you know, if you don't know this already, when you see a number on a Glock like 17, that refers to the patent number, all right? So the Glock 17 pistol was the 17th patent of Gaston Glock, all right? Another thing I want you to notice real quick here on the frame of the gun is that the magazine release is quite small. That's going to change as we go through the generations. Generation 2 saw some internal changes, but not too much different visibly here. The frame still does not have a rail for a light. We're still with the one pin here. We still have a reduced size magazine release, but you can see that the panel texture, the pebble textures here, but on the back strap and on the front of the grip, we have a more aggressive texture going on, okay? As for the sights, by the way, on Glocks, Glock is really known for their cup and ball concept for their sights. A lot of people don't like those, and these are all my personal guns, and you'll notice on most of them, especially the ones that I shoot, so Gen 3 through 5, I've changed the sights out. That's probably one of the primary changes, and there are tons of options for those. Let's get into Gen 3. So this is 1998 was when Gen 3 was introduced into the market, and the first thing you'll notice is now we have the addition of a rail for weapon-mounted light, okay? Probably, certainly a request from law enforcement. Look at this, we go from 1 pin to 2 pins. We still have the reduced size magazine release. We also now see the introduction of finger grooves, and this particular Gen 3 is a special model. It's an RTF2 rough textured frame. It's got sort of like a shark skin feel to it. It really very grippy on the skin. I love it. They're a little bit rare, but we start to see changes in the grip, the shape of it, and the texture of the grip panel. Now, in 2010, saw the introduction of the Generation 4 here, and let's just quickly go through the frame. Rail stays. We still have 2 pins here. Look at the size of the magazine release. long in coming. I'm sure many people requested it. It's now 2/3 bigger, so a lot easier to manage. We still have the finger grooves. Notable change in the texture all around here, much more aggressive. And this is what happened in Gen 4. We have the introduction of adjustable back straps. So if you opened up your Glock Tupperware, there would be an assortment of back straps that you could attach right to the back here. And, for larger hands, you had some options. So that was added. And then in 2017, we saw the introduction of the Gen 5, okay? Gen 5 saw quite a few changes. Internally, to the trigger housing, the way the trigger works, different than the previous generations. The barrel, the rifling in the barrel changed from the polygonal rifling to now the lands and grooves, what they call the match grade barrel. And then we see here, the finger grooves have disappeared. So apparently people didn't like that. And we went back to the single pin here, the trigger pin. And we have a flared magazine well, some flaring on the magazine well to make reloading easier. And those are a lot of the basic changes. And as I said, sight options are virtually endless with Glocks. A lot of people ask me all the time what pistol I shoot all the time, and I own a lot of guns of various tier 1 manufacturers, Sig Sauer, CZ, HK, etc. I train and shoot a Glock all the time, and I'll tell you why. This is the gun that I trust with my life 100%. I have the luxury of working in a facility where we have a gunsmith, and I see hundreds of guns that come into the gunsmith all the time. The guns that are in there the least are the Glocks. Our rental wall has over 100 rental guns on it. The ones that get rented the most are the Glocks by far. Some of them have over 100,000 rounds on them. And guess what guns I see the least in the armory? The Glocks. And that's why I love them. Anyway, stop on by, try some of our Glocks out, and we'll see you soon.